First of all, thank you all for coming. I know you do this on a Saturday, but it is Saturday, so I appreciate everybody coming, unless you just came inside to get warm, but it is warm here. In fact, this is my first visit to Kazakhstan, and when we were at lunch just now, Aaliyah wrote down cold place with warm people, and I think that kind of summarizes my trip so far. So my name's Jeff Hoffman. I'm going to tell you a little bit about sort of my background and my story, but I hope that you guys will have questions. And this is supposed to be a discussion group and interactive. I know it's harder because we have a lot of people today, but I really hope that you guys have things you want to talk about, and you'll have questions after we get going here. So I'll spend a few minutes and just sort of tell you my story a little bit. And you know, one of the things that we learn, I have been taking the last 2 years and just traveling around the world to as many countries as I can go to. And the most important thing that I've learned is that we're not that different. That everywhere you go, people are more the same than they are different. And it's been, you know, so hopefully some of the things, even though I grew up in a different country, some of the things that in my life and the choices I've made will be things that we can share, or maybe even things people can learn from. That's why I spend a lot of time now traveling around and talking. But when I was growing up, and I grew up in the western part of the United States, in the desert in Arizona. My parents told me, like everybody's parents, everybody tells you sort of the rules of growing up and what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go away and get your education. Then you're supposed to pick a career, like an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever you're going to be. Then you're supposed to go find a job and a salary, right? And then at some age, you're supposed to get married and have children. There's a book somebody wrote somewhere that's what we're supposed to follow. But I never really believed that. I always wondered who wrote this book? Who made this decision of how we're supposed to lead our life, and that everybody's supposed to do what everybody tells you to do. And even when you go to university, when you go to college, when you're 22 years old, and people say, what are you going to do with your life? Like you're supposed to make a decision. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be in finance. You don't even know what you're going to be. You don't even know who you are yet. So how can you make these decisions about your life? But that's what everybody tells you to do. So when I went away to university, I went to a university in the United States called Yale University. And Yale is very expensive. And I didn't have any money. And when I went there and got to school, there were a lot of kids at this school whose families had money, but mine didn't. So I went to class, and when I was in my first classes, the first week, the professor called me and said, Mr. Hoffman? And I said, yes. And he said, you have to leave. And I said, why? And he said, because you didn't pay. And I said, I paid you all the money I have. And he said, well, it's not enough. So I went out of class, and I called home. And even my parents, even though they love me, said, well, just go home, right? Go to a university near here that doesn't cost money. And then I called my friends, and they said, just go home. And it was interesting to me, at 18 years old, that if the first time you have a problem in life, you choose to quit, what's the rest of your life going to be like? So I remember thinking then, actually, to be honest, I went outside on the stairs, and I sat on the stairs, and I started crying, because this was my dream. I worked really, really hard. Harvard and Yale are two schools in the US that are really hard to get into. And I worked very hard, and I got in, and then they told me to go home just because I didn't have money. And I even went to talk to the administration, the financial officer of the school. And he said, sorry, you don't pay, you have to go home. And there was a brochure that said, you know, like most institutions, that, you know, we don't care about your money, we care about your brains and your education. And I showed him that. And he said, wake up, this is the real world. That's just a brochure. And I thought, that's not a very good world to live in. And he said, well, that's the real world. That's how things work. And so I was just sad because I've worked so hard for this dream and I couldn't do it. And I was sitting on the stairs crying. And people were walking past me, laughing at me. Look at the poor kid crying, basically, because they had money and they could do what they wanted and I couldn't. And it really bothered me, but I have to tell you guys, it was an important moment in my life for this reason. Because when things go bad in your life, and you get really sad and nothing's working, and even if you're crying and other people are just laughing at you, you have two choices at that moment. You can't choose what happens to you in life, but you have all the control over what you do about it. Okay? So my two choices were, I can just quit, like everybody told me to, and go home to a small college and give up my dream. Or I could find some way to keep fighting for the dream. And I had a mental picture because I got all the way down low where I was so sad I didn't even want to get up. And the fact that I was sitting there crying outside in public, you could see how upset I was. But then I got a thought. If I just keep sitting here and give up, then the world wins and I have no dreams. But I've got to find a way to get my strength back. What can I do to resolve this? So I closed my eyes and I made a picture in my head. And the picture was a fire, right? And the fire is the flame that burns inside of you. It's whatever makes you have dreams. It's whatever makes you want to get up and do things when you don't feel like it. Everybody has a flame inside of them. And the brighter that flame is your passion. Whatever you care about, whatever you dream about, whatever you want to do. And if you let everybody else laugh on it till it goes out, you're just not going to have much of a life. So I thought, I don't want everybody else to make me give up. So I started, every time somebody would laugh, I would pretend that their laughter, their laughing was like gasoline, like fuel. And every time they laughed, that threw more fuel on the fire. And it made the fire bigger, and I got more determined to get up and go show that I could do what I could, prove everybody wrong and just do it. So when people would laugh at me, instead of getting upset, I would laugh back and say, you're just making me stronger. Because every time someone tells me, no, you can't do it, it makes me more determined to show that I can do it. So I got up that day and kind of brushed myself off, and I said, you can all tell me to go home, but I'm not going home. And you can laugh all you want, but I'm not upset anymore. And I'm going to do this somehow. And the only thing I could think of then, thank you, was that I started my first company. Now, I did not want to be an entrepreneur. I didn't even know what that word was. But I wanted to be somebody who had big dreams and kept working really hard to make them. And I realized that nobody gives you anything in this world. If you really want something, you have to do it. You have to get it. In fact, I learned another lesson as my life went on. The more successful you are, the more people you think they're going to be happy for you. They're not happy for you. People a lot of times are happy when you fail. And the reason that they're happy when you fail is because it makes them feel better. If I have a big dream and I fail, then other people can say, see, dreaming is a waste of time. It doesn't work anyway, and they feel better about not trying. So I realized no one's going to help me. If I want to achieve something in my life, thanks, I'm going to have to do it myself. I'm going to drink water over the electronics now. I'm going to have to go do it myself. So I started that company, and I found a way to start making money while I was in college. I was making software and selling software, but I paid for my university by myself by having this company. And I kept on working until I actually graduated and got my degree and finished. Now, I didn't think then that I wanted to have my own company, but what it taught me, and what you learn from the first time in your life that you have something really big you want to do, everybody tells you you can't do it, and you do it anyway. What happens to you? What happens to you is you have some confidence for the first time. Because you know that even though when you're standing down here, that mountain looked really tall, When you're on the top of the mountain and you look down, you say, hey, I can climb this, I can do this. So the next time you see a mountain, you think, it does look tall, but I know I can do it. I've done this before. So it helped my attitude, right, for me to understand that. And attitude, I always tell people this, your attitude determines what happens to you in life. If you have a positive attitude and you believe that you can do things, you can do those things. It's people that start by assuming, by thinking, the mountain's too tall, I can't climb it. They've already lost, right? And the people that think they can climb everything, they can't climb everything, but they climb so much higher than everyone else because they think they can, and they try. And Drew, I'm thinking, I wonder if I should tell my 10-year-old story, the car. I think that sort of fits. I'll tell you guys a story about attitude. And I'm sorry, some of you might have heard this if you heard me speak already, but it was an important moment for me in my life. When I was a little boy, before that, when I was 10 years old, I saw my friend next door had a picture in his house, a poster. And the poster was a poster of a car. And all my friends were standing there looking at this car. And they were fascinated. And I didn't understand. It's a car. Well, what's the big deal? And the car was a Ferrari. And I had never even heard of a car like that. I did not know what that meant or what the word was. And I went home and asked my mother. And I said, why is everybody so fascinated by this picture? And my mother said, what's the picture? And I said, it's a car called a Ferrari. And my mother said, oh, well, that explains it. And I said, what? She said, they're all fascinated by this picture because it's something they'll never have. And I said, why not? She said, oh, you'll never have one either. And I said, oh, I thought these cars were real. My mother said, no, a Ferrari's something real. And I said, then why can't I have one? And she said, because you never will. And nobody that you know will ever have a car like that. And now this wasn't a story about cars, but I said to my mother, I don't understand. Does somebody have this car? And my mother said, yeah, of course somebody has this car, just not you. Okay? And I was even then thinking, wait a minute, why are you telling me already what I can't do, what mountain I can't climb? So then I told my friends. I went to people and I said, when I grow up, I'm going to drive a Ferrari. And I still didn't really barely know what it was. And everybody laughed. And I said, why is that funny? And they said, because it'll never happen. And I said, well, if you think it'll never happen, then certainly it won't. And I said, but why will it never happen? And everybody said, because this many people in the whole world will ever drive a car like that, and you're just not one of them. And I remember thinking then, why is everybody else telling you what you can achieve? Why is everybody else telling you what you're allowed to dream about and how big your dreams can be? Because that didn't make any sense to me. I kept thinking this, if I have really big dreams, and if I work really hard, shouldn't it be up to me what car I can drive, what mountain I can climb? Why am I not in control of my future and my destiny? And it's just because that's the way the world works. People look at something and say, well, I'll never achieve that. And you've already lost when you've done that. I looked at that picture, I kept that picture, and I looked at that car, and I said, you know what, I don't even care about cars. But one day, I want to buy that car just to show that you can do it. Just to show that if you have big dreams and you work really hard, whatever you want to do, you can achieve. You have to do this yourself. No one's going to help you. And lots of people will put their arm around you when you fail and say, see, I told you you could never climb that mountain. You could never have that car. But I started then saying, I am going to work really hard in my life. I am going to have really big dreams, and I'm going to make them happen somehow. And guess what? Here's the worst thing. If I don't make them happen, I'm going to have a pretty interesting life, right? I'm going to have a pretty good adventure just trying instead of giving up when I was 18 years old and everybody said, it's too much, just give up. So I started out my life with that attitude, that I'm going to make my own goals and I'm going to do what I have to do. To do that, when I first went to work, though, everybody was telling me, go find a company, get a job, and get a salary, because that's what people do. So I did that, and I hated it. I went to work every day, and I did not like it. I did not like the big company I worked for. I did not like the sort of environment there was a guy at our company, a man named Charles, that everybody, he had been there for 26 years. And he's the person that everybody wanted to be. And I'm not telling you not to go get a big job in a big company. I'm just telling you that I couldn't. Every one of you has to make your own decision on your own life of what you want to do. But I remember that everybody wanted to be him. He was the highest person at our company. And one day when I was walking over to see him, I was counting the steps from where I was to where he was. And it took me like, roughly, it took me like 26 steps. And he'd been there 26 years. And I remember thinking, if I'm going to spend 26 years just to move over there, I'm just going to go jump off the top of the building now because it's just not going to work for me. And I didn't understand it. In fact, I will tell you guys what happened the day that I just couldn't do it anymore. Because I kept thinking what I told you guys, that somewhere there was a relationship between having big dreams and working really hard. And if I kept doing those two things, something good should happen to me in my life because I had big dreams and I worked really hard. And so I wanted something big. In fact, one day I started writing down things I want to do with my life. And one of them was I wrote down one day, I want to go to 50 different countries before I die. I think I went to 50 different countries last year. But back then I was saying, that's something important to me, right? And so I would tell people that, but I would be sitting in the cubicle in this big company with everyone else looking out the window every day thinking, I'm so far at 0 out of 50 countries. I haven't gone anywhere and I haven't done anything. And if I keep doing this every day, I'm not sure anything's ever going to be different. I wanted an adventure in my life. And not to be irresponsible. You still have bills to pay, you have people to take care of. But the question is, can you do both? Can you be responsible and make your life an adventure? Yes. It's just like, it's like the car. When people said, no, you have to do one or the other. I kept saying, no, I don't think you do. And I'm going to find out. So one day, in the big company, the boss came. And there was a new job for a manager open. And everybody wanted that new job as manager. And our boss came. And he came and got me. And he said, Hoffman, come here. And all my friends in the cubicles were all looking. So it's either really good or really bad. Because the big guy came to look for me. And he said, come with me. And I said, yes, sir. And we went over to the window. And we were standing at the window. And he said, Jeff, what do you see out this window? And I looked out the window, and it's the parking lot. So it's just cars. So it must be a trick. Or maybe someone's hiding behind the car that I'm supposed to find. I don't know what to say. And the clock is ticking. So I find that I don't want to, disappoint the manager. And I said, cars. And he said, yes, that's right. And I said, yes, I'm doing really good on the management test. I don't know what it is, but I got an answer right already. And he said, there's a promotion. There's a manager job open at this company. And I said, yes. And he said, do you want that job? And I said, yes, sir, everybody wants that job. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you how I decide at this company who's going to move ahead in the company. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, at the end of every day, I come over to this window, and I look outside, and what do you think I'm looking for? And I was like, uh-oh, this is another trick question. And I thought for a minute, he's looking at me. So it worked last time, so I just said, cars. And he said, yes. And I was thinking, I'm doing so good on this test. I got 2 answers right. My friends were all nodding, like, way to go, Jeff, right behind me. And he said, every day I come here, I'm trying to decide who's going to get ahead in this company. And I look out in the parking lot. And I'm looking to see whose car is here the last. Whose car is the last one here? He said, that's how I decide who's going to do well at this company. And I said, what? I said, what if that's a person that can't do their work, so they're still here when we went home? And he didn't say anything. And I said, what if that's a person that's so inefficient or so unqualified that they have to stay late at night to do the work that the rest of us do during the day? And he didn't say anything. And I was horrified. I was thinking my whole career is just going to be based on how long my car stays at work. And I said, this is not what I want to do with my life. And he said, so Jeff, did you learn a lesson? And I said, yes, sir, I did. And he said, what did you learn? And I said, I'm going to buy 2 cars and I'm just going to leave one here. And all my friends behind me started laughing. And he turned around and they all went back in their cubicles. And he got very angry and he looked at me. And he said, I guess you think that was funny? And I said, honestly, sir, that was sort of funny. And then he turned away and walked away without looking. You know, all my friends were doing this. It's over. My career is dead. And I thought that day, I don't know what's going to happen to me for the rest of my life, but it can't be this. I'm never going to see 50 countries. I'm never going to do any of the things I want to do if the measure of my life is how long I sat in my cubicle and how long my car was there. So I decided to quit. And when I quit work, I quit my job. And when I did that, everybody said I was crazy. And the reason why is I had a salary at a good company. I had insurance. I had something to go every day, and I just quit. And I quit not knowing what was ahead of me, but knowing where I was at now wasn't going to work. In fact, I'll tell you guys, we used to go, well, we all worked at the same company, and on Fridays, we all used to go to my friend's house, to Craig's house. We'd go to Craig's house, and we'd sit on the couch, and we'd watch sports. And while we were sitting there, all my friends would say, it's December. Okay, this is the last year. This year, I'm really quitting this job to go chase my dreams. And then next year, guess what they'd say? Okay, no, this is the last year. This time, I'm really leaving. And then I would hear other people say, someday, I'm going to go visit Central Asia. Someday, I'm going to do this. But nobody ever got off the couch. Everybody talks about their dreams, and nobody does anything. And that's how I was feeling at work, too. So I remember thinking on the couch, I don't know what's going to happen if I get up off this couch, if I quit my job and go chase my dreams. But I do know what the rest of my life is going to look like if I never leave this couch. It's going to be Friday after Friday, year after year, where I'm going to say, this is the year I'm going to go pursue my dreams. This is the year, the thing I've always wanted to do in my life, I'm going to try it. And you know what? That year will never come. So you know what I did one day? I just stood up. And I said, I'm done, guys. I got to do something different. I want to live my life. And I remember thinking, you know, people are always talking about building for the future. And I remember thinking, wait, what about now? Isn't this my life? Is today not part of my life? Is this not a day in your life? I know that tomorrow's important too, but your life is happening right now. And I didn't want to live every day for someday. And so I quit. And when I quit, I went home, and there was, in fact, I remember making a note to myself. I opened the cupboard, and there was no food. I opened the refrigerator, there was no food. So I made a note to myself, next time you quit a job, quit after you get your paycheck. So at least you have a little bit of food left. But there I was. And I will tell you, even though I didn't know what I was going to do next, when you jump off the cliff, right, when you jump off the mountain, you have to think of something fast, okay? So if you don't eat until you create something in the world, that's pretty good motivation for creating. So even though I didn't know what I was going to do, I had to figure something out, and I put myself in a position where I wasn't sitting comfortably on the couch for the rest of my life. I was out in the world now, and I had to do something. And I want to sort of share with you guys an experience, even though it happened a little bit later in my life, that I've talked about some here, that really sort of shaped my thinking a little bit there as well. I just want to share this with you guys because part of what I was thinking is, I don't know what's going to happen in my life, and I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to go out and try. And every one of us has a dream, a passion, something you've always thought about, something you've always wanted to try that we never do, that most people never do. And you know, one of the most important lessons that I learned, people don't try because they're afraid of failing, right? And the truth is that failing is not the worst thing that could happen to you. Never trying is the worst thing that could happen to you. Let's just make one up. Let's say you wanted to be a singer, and you spent your whole life thinking about it. If you try, and you go out, and you take your best shot, and you don't become a famous singer, you can live with that. You can say, it wasn't meant to be, I tried. But if you never try, you will spend the whole rest of your life watching singers on TV and thinking, I could have done that. I wonder what I could have been. And that lives right here. That never goes away. So failure is not the worst thing in life. Not trying is the worst thing in life. So I said, I'm going to try. And I also said, I don't even know how much time, what the path of life is, but something happened in my life that really reinforced that. I had a best friend, and my best friend was named Michael. And Michael was kind of crazy in a good way, but Michael liked to live life, right? And I would a lot of times have to tell Michael, all right, calm down. Michael would come to work, and he'd say, Jeff, we should go out to the mountains today. And I'd say, Michael, it's Tuesday, and we're at work. We can go on Saturday. And Michael would say, wait, what if there is no Saturday? And I would say, Michael, we'll go on Saturday. And then 2 weeks later, Michael would say, hey, I want to go on a camping trip or go visit a friend. And I'd say, Michael, it's Wednesday. We can go on Saturday. Okay? And every time Michael would say, but what if there is no Saturday? And every time I would say, Michael, we'll go on Saturday. Well, Michael was on a trip to Ireland. And on a Friday in Ireland, he got swept out in the Irish Sea, and they never found him. And I got the call the next day from the Irish Coast Guard, from the police there. And they said, your friend was lost at sea. And it was Saturday. And all I could think is, Michael was right, there's no Saturday. He actually ran out of Saturdays. And I just had to put the phone down and sit down for a minute. Not only was I upset that my best friend died, but I just realized at that very moment that we have no idea how many Saturdays we have left. And if I keep saying we'll go Saturday, what if Saturday never comes? Michael was right. Michael's Saturdays stopped coming. So one of the things I said was to honor Michael's life, but just to live life properly, I can't always say we'll do it Saturday. I got to make today Saturday and go do it and get involved, be more active in the things that I wanted to do in my life. And that really made me think about, and I was telling the story before that Michael's funeral, his parents asked me to speak at his funeral, which was the hardest talk I've ever given in my life. And when I was standing there talking about Michael and listening to people talk about Michael, I listened to what people said about his life. And I thought to myself, what will people say about my life when it's over? And then I thought something more. I thought, what do I want them to say? So I'm going to ask you guys, when your life is over, what do you want people to say about you? Because guess what? What you do with your life determines what they say about you. So if you want people to say something about your life, who you were and how you lived it, then you better be that person and you better go live that life. And that really occurred to me. So I wrote down 2 things that very day at Michael's funeral. I wrote down, if my life ended today, what would people say about my life? Then I wrote down, what do I want people to say about my life? Then I looked at those and I said, what am I doing to make this real? What am I doing to live this life so that when I die, when my life's over, this is what people would say about me? And I looked at my life and I said, I'm not doing any of these things. I'm not doing something that will take me where I want to go. So it changed. When I started launching companies as an entrepreneur, when something wasn't working, it was always easy for me to just say, you know what, I'm wasting my time, let's move on. I never spent, my biggest fear was waking up 26 years later in the same place because I didn't do anything. So I never had a problem with moving on because I always ask myself, and you all should too, what do I want at the end, my life to be at the end? What am I doing now? And is the thing that I'm doing now taking me there? Because if whatever I'm doing with my life now is sailing in this direction and I want to wind up here, then why am I doing it? So it was easier for me. It's like having a guiding light. I know what I want my life to be about, so I can make decisions by saying, does this help me achieve what I want to achieve? For example, I told you I always wanted to see 50 countries. So guess what business my first startup was? The first company I started was a travel company. Because guess what happens then? I can still pay my bills, go to work, take care of things responsibly, but I can do that in a way that achieves my life goals. Because working in the business will give me the chance to travel and see 50 different countries. Find a way to take your life's goals and your work and put them together somehow. The other part is your dreams and your passion. Because it turns out, well, I got to tell you guys just another quick story of a college student, university student that I met. I asked him, what are you studying in university? And he said to me, mechanical engineering. And I said, oh, because when you go to bed at night, you have dreams about engineering things. And he said, no, I don't dream about engineering. And I said, will you wake up in the morning and all day you're just thinking about engineering something? And he said, no. And I said, then why are you becoming an engineer? And he said, my father's an engineer, my mother's an engineer, and my sister's an engineer. That's what we do in this family. Okay, that's the family business. And I said, but you don't seem that excited about engineering. And he said, but that's the family business, that's what we do. And I said, okay, let's change the topic. Let's talk about something else. And I said, what do you dream about if it's not engineering? And I said, let's make up a dream. I said, what is your favorite, what are you most passionate about? What do you love doing? Because it's not engineering. And he said, oh, cooking. He said, I watch all the cooking shows, and I love to get home from my engineering job, right? So I can go in the kitchen and cook. And I love it when people try my meals and I feed everybody and they like it. And he was really excited talking about that. And I said, what else do you like? And he said, traveling and exploring new cities and meeting new people. And I said, so let's make up a dream. What would the dream job be for you? And he said,
Jeff, what about your study? Did you said that where your first challenge was when you were 18 years old. So did you get creative with your study or just for starting a company?
Yeah, let me finish this and I'll talk about that. So he, his dream job, I asked him what his dream was in a perfect world. And his dream job was he would get, I don't know if you have them here, but in the United States we have food trucks. And they park on the side of the road and cook meals. And you walk up to them and buy your meal there. He said, I would buy a food truck and I would drive around the United States and I would cook meals for people and tell them stories and visit their cities and learn their stories. And you could see in his eyes, this would be the coolest thing he could ever do. And when he finished telling me about his dream, it was quiet. And he said, uh-oh. And I said, what? And he said, now I'll never be able to be an engineer. He said, I'm going to spend every day looking out the window and seeing somebody drive by in a cooking truck and wishing I could go with them. And I said, you know, you can go with them. And he said, no, I can't. My parents would be really upset. And I said, okay, I said, I'm not telling you not to be an engineer. I'm just telling you that it's a different life when you're doing something you're passionate about. When you're doing something you love doing, you do it better. And guess what? Sometimes people say, I took the engineering job for the money. But when you do something you really love doing, you do it way better and you get paid anyway. The money follows you when you're doing something you're excellent at. So I'll tell you another story about that in just a second. So the next day he came back and he said, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I was up all night. And he said, I can't be an engineer. And I said, look, I wasn't trying to change you. And he said, no, you made me think about it. That's my dream. I got to try it at least in my life. If it doesn't work, I have an engineering degree. I can always get a job. But I got to try this dream. And so I said, well, when you get home, you're going to have to talk to your parents. And he said, yes. The next day he came and he said, I couldn't wait. I said, what do you mean? And he said, I emailed them. I said, you emailed your parents to tell them you're not going to run the family engineering business? And he said, I did. And I said, what do you think's going to happen? And he said, my mother's going to cry for 2 weeks, and then my father's going to shoot me, so it doesn't matter anyway. And I said, no, I think your father's going to shoot me. So he left, and after sending that email, to wait to see what happened. The next day, he came back, and I was right. He was crying. And I said, look, I am so sorry. I did not mean to interfere with your life, your family. Now your whole family's upset. And I'm sorry. And he said, no, that's not why I'm crying. And I said, then why are you crying? And he said, I'm crying because I'm happy. And I said, why are you happy? And he said, because my father's buying the food truck. And I said, your father? And he said, go back to your computer because he sent you an email. So I went in, and his father sent me an email. And his father said, this is the first time in my life I ever felt like I connected to my son. He said, my son has never shared his dreams with me. He was afraid to tell me because he thought I'd be too upset about the family business. And he said, of course I want my son to run the family business, but what I want more is a happy son. He said, I want my son to have a good life. I want him to be happy. We're his parents. That's what we care about. And if this is what he dreams of then I don't want him standing in the engineering company staring out the window all day. We want him to be happy and to pursue his dreams. His father bought the truck. Today, he sends me pictures. He's in Birmingham, Alabama now, with his truck, cooking meals for people, laughing, talking, telling them stories, and he's doing really well at it. He makes more money every month than his salary would have been because everybody loves his food. The point of the story is not that I'm not telling you not to go take the family job, the engineering job, or anything else. All I'm telling you is make the decision for your reasons. Think about what it is you want your life to be. Think about what you want to do and build a life around that, and you will be much happier. And the people that you think are going to be disappointed, do you think they'd rather have you be unhappy for 26 years, but at least you're there every day? Or do they think if they really love you, they want you to live a fulfilling life and a good life? And I want to say, we'll do some discussion now. I want to tell you one other story, though, about following your passion. Because what people tell you is, oh, well, if I do that, I won't make the money, right? And we're not pretending money's not real. You have to pay for your car. You have to pay for your home. Money is real. What I'm telling you, though, is... What was his name? I'll tell you afterwards. But I'm going to tell you a story of somebody else that I knew, that a friend of mine named Chris. And Chris wanted to sing. And everybody would tell Chris, you just need to go get a job. You know, people in his life were telling him, you need to go get a job like everybody else. And he wanted to sing. And what he was thinking was, I know I could go get a job and get the engineering degree or whatever, but I will never be happy. I want to take my shot at singing. And the point is, it was something that he was really passionate about. And what I'm telling you is, when you go follow something that's your dream, you might not make the money at the beginning, but you'll be so passionate about it that you'll do it so well that your chances of success are better. So Chris went and started a singing group with some other kids that he knew, that he called and said, I want to start a group, let's sing. And they had no money, and nobody paid them, and there was no chance that it was ever going to work. But they were passionate about it, they believed, and they worked really hard. And I love the end of the story because Chris's group was a little something called NSYNC. And Chris started NSYNC calling this kid he knew named Justin Timberlake. And they said, look, let's give this a shot. We love singing, let's go sing and see what happens. And there were people in their lives that were telling them, you should get a job like everybody else. You're not going to make it as a singer. Well, I'm pretty sure the NSYNC guys and Justin Timberlake and that whole group are pretty happy that they followed their passions. Because guess what happened in the end? They did really well at it. But they took the risk, is the point, of saying, Chris saying, I can't go my whole life wondering if I could have started a music group. I'm just going to try it. If it fails, I can go get a job, but I'm going to follow my passions and see where they lead. So I just love Chris's story because I remember one night sitting with Justin and Chris and the NSYNC guys at Giant Stadium in New York where the Super Bowl is about to be played, and there were 70,000 screaming, mostly girls, but 70,000 girls screaming for NSYNC and buying tickets. And I remember turning to Chris and saying, good thing you followed your dreams, huh? Because you could be sitting in an engineering cubicle right now. Now that doesn't mean everybody's going to have that success. What it does mean, though, is at least you gave yourself a chance. So let's stop for a minute. And what was the question? So we can do some questions.
So I was asking, did you quit with your college studying for full reasons?
Okay, so the question is quitting college to start a company, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something.
Is that right or not right?
Right, so you read a lot, especially in the U.S., where they glorify. They make a big deal out of some of the internet, stars dropped out of college and didn't graduate. Here's the thing. For every one successful person that left college, dropped out of school, and started a company in the United States, that they did succeed, but there are 99 other people that also succeeded and finished their university degree. Which odds do you want? Do you want 1% chance of success, or do you want the 99%? It's just not as interesting a story. The guy that dropped out of college is a better story, so the media talks about it. But the other 99 people that were successful went to school. And here's why. I'm going to tell you guys what I think. I did not leave the university. I finished my degree. And some people say to me, well, the things I'm studying at the university, they're not going to help me. I'm not going to, if I take math and I learn how to compute the square root of a number, right? I'm not going to be at work one day and a customer is going to walk into my company and say, quick, I need the square root of a number. okay? And I'm going to say, ooh, I'm glad I learned that in school. That's probably not going to happen. So people say, why do I need to stay in school? It's because you're missing the point. The point of going to school, whether it's your high school, any level of school, of your university, is not the thing you learn. It's learning how to learn. Your school education teaches you how to solve problems. It teaches you how to think analytically. It teaches you how to think in a structured manner. So the very first time, I was 20-something years old, and I had my own company, and I was the boss, the managing director, the CEO. And somebody came in and asked me, we have a problem. Jeff, we have a problem. We need to solve it. And I thought, I'm like 20-something years old. I don't know how to solve it. I don't know the answer. And all my employees were older than me, and I didn't know the answer. But they said, well, we're stuck, and you're the boss. So I thought, okay, here's what we'll do. And I said, go to the board and write down the problem. And I said, let's see if we can break this problem into 4 smaller problems. Let's break those 4 smaller problems into 16 problems. Then the 16 of us will each take one of those little problems, fix it, come back together, put those answers together, and then fix the next problem up until we're all the way back at the top. And somebody said, where did you come up with that idea? And I said, that's what we do in engineering class. That's how we solve problems. I never knew that I was going to use any of that, but I solved a business problem using the skills that I learned in my university as an engineer. Your education teaches you how to learn. When you're out in the world, that is a skill you need. You need to know how to solve problems. You need to know how to learn. So this is just my opinion, but I absolutely think people should finish their education, even if you have a startup company. You know what happened? I was running my company and going to school. Do you know what I had to do? Never sleep. So it's not easy, right? You can't do everything. So I ran my company at night. I went to school all day. I just didn't sleep much. As a matter of fact, my whole life I've been saying, someday when I get older, I'll finally sleep, and I still haven't. Certainly haven't slept much on this trip. There's just so many things that I want to do still that it's harder to be in school and have a business. But nothing worth having in this life is easy. It's like saying, if you were going to go play hockey against a 3-year-old, you'll probably win. But do you feel very good that you won later? That there's a 3-year-old laying there crying because you beat him at hockey? That is not a very good victory. If you have a friend who plays hockey on a local team and you beat that person, you feel pretty good about doing something difficult to do. So hard problems and working hard feels much, much better. So I just said, you know what? I could quit school and do this company, but I could also just work harder and do them both, and I felt much better at the end. Who has some questions or things you guys want to talk about?
I have not a small question, it's a big question. Yesterday you were saying about 10 steps about to have to motivate yourself to do business. But for us, for example, who didn't do any business, the business is as a big problem. Can you break this problem to smaller problems to choose and say on your way how did you figure one of your business step by step?
You mean how did I start one of them?
Maybe and divide it to some small problems that we can choose. Is big for us who didn't do business. It's a big problem, but if you, as you said, you broke the problem.
Sure. So let me talk about business from my perspective, which is entrepreneur. Okay. So I already told you that I didn't work at a big company anymore. I went out to become an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur, what some people will tell you is an entrepreneur is someone that runs their own business. I don't think that's the best definition. An entrepreneur is someone who sees a problem in the world and decides to solve it themselves. That's why some entrepreneurs are successful and other ones are not. Because some people say, I want to be an entrepreneur just because I want to have my own business. That's not really a reason, right? The best entrepreneurs I know are people who were somewhere in the world, saw a problem, and said, I can fix that myself. And that's what you build your business around. So if you're thinking about a career in entrepreneurship, in fact, let me tell you, when I left, and I got that job, right? I left my job, and I started my first company. My whole life, everybody kept saying, so I would start a company, and to solve a problem that I saw in the world. And then, if we solved it well, some big company would buy the company. And I would say, that was good, let's go solve another one. So, but you know what people said to me my whole life? what's wrong with you? Why can't you just get a job like everybody else? And I said, well, I kind of have a job. My job is solving problems. And people said, well, that's not a job. A job is working for the big engineering company down the street where all your friends work. And everybody kept saying, what is wrong with you and why can't you get a job? They kept telling me that I was unstable because people would say, what are you doing? And I said, I'm doing this thing. And they said, wait, I talked to you last year and you were doing something different. And I said, right, we finished that and we sold the company. Now we're doing something different. And they kept saying, you're so unstable. You're always doing something different. And that's because that book we were talking about of rules that doesn't really exist says that what you're supposed to do is get a job at a company and stay there as long as you can. And I don't know who made that decision, but I didn't think you had to do that. So that's how you get it. That's what you're supposed to do with your career. The longer you work at a company, the better you're doing. That's what people tell you. So if you're somebody that keeps changing jobs every couple of years, something must be wrong with you. But here's what I was thinking. Why isn't there a business card that says problem solver? And that's my job. I solve a problem. And when I'm done with it, guess what I do? I solve another problem. And if the next one takes me 2 years instead of 3 years, that's not a bad thing that I'm doing something new every 2 years. That's a good thing because I finished this one early. And that never existed. And it took me a lot of years of everybody saying, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just get a job? And one day I found out that there is a name for the disease that I have. It's called entrepreneurship. But I did not know that then. You can have a job where your job in life is to find problems, fix them, and then go find another one. That is what the business card of an entrepreneur is. So that is what I've spent my whole life doing. That very first company, I'll just tell you about that to give you the example of a small problem to go solve. So I quit that job and I was out there in the world. Now I got to create a company. And I had an incident where I was on the phone calling a travel agent. I needed an airline ticket. I needed an airline ticket to go to New York. And I said, I need a 3 o'clock flight to New York. And the travel agent said, there's a 2 o'clock flight on United Airlines and a 4 o'clock on United. And I said, but I'm going to go at 3. And she said, well, there's a 2 o'clock on United and a 4 o'clock on United. And I paused and I said, there's also a 3 o'clock flight on American. And she said, well, yes, there is. And I said, well, then why didn't you tell me that? That's what I wanted. And I realized why she didn't tell me that. She didn't tell me that because she makes more money selling me the 2 o'clock or the 4 o'clock flight on United. So I remember thinking, this really bothers me. Why can't I just see all the travel information and book my own flight? I'll pick my own flight on my computer. I don't want to call you anymore because I don't trust you. But that did not exist. So this is the point. This is what the job of entrepreneur is about. And I'll give you guys some advice if you want to be entrepreneurs. When you see a real problem in the world, stop and say, does anyone else have this problem? Ask all the people, does it bother you when you call the travel agent that you don't know if they really gave you the best deal? Did they really read you the best ticket? You don't know. And if everybody says, yes, I have that problem too, then ask the second question. Is there a better way? Is there a solution? And if there's not a solution, then you should say, maybe I should fix this. So that's how you start in business as an entrepreneur. Think of something in the world that bothers you as a problem and go fix it yourself. So I started a company pretty much the next day. And I'll skip the details, but we created the first technology in the world for online travel booking. We made the first online travel booking systems that ever existed. Later, my team created the technology that became Expedia.com, which is one of the big companies out there. But that first company where I created this, it turns out lots of people have that problem. And when I said to them, don't you wish you could just make your own reservations, do your own bookings on your laptop? They said yes, everybody wanted it. So I was 20-something years old. That first company, I sold it to American Express. We sold our company for millions of dollars. We sold our company, everybody told me this, when you quit your job, you quit your salary. How are you ever going to get paid again? What's going to happen? All these horrible things were going to happen to me. Except 3 years later, I made millions of dollars when I was 20-something years old because I did something I was passionate about. I took a risk, I took a chance, and I went out in the world and actually solved a problem that lots of people cared about. That's what entrepreneurs do. And that's the way you start a business. Pick some small thing that you can go fix and go fix it.
What are the next steps? find money, to find people, how do you organize everything?
So if you didn't hear, the question was, what are the next steps when you find a problem that you want to solve? And I have to tell you, I sure didn't know. I had no idea what I was doing. That's why I told you guys, when I hired some people, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and they'd come to my office and say, hey Jeff, you're the boss, we don't know what to do. And I would say, wait, you think I know something? I said, I hired you because I don't know anything, and I thought you knew, right? And they said, well, I kind of do, and I said, then just go do it, and then explain it to me later, right? So the answer to your question is, you have to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. I already knew that I didn't know all these things. I don't know finance, right? I'm not a good engineer. I did not know operations, but I did know one thing. I did know that I needed to go find a whole bunch of people that were smarter than me. And that one thing was the most important thing. So in your life, and it's important for you coming to an event like American Corner, in your life, one of the most valuable things you can do is build your network of people you know in the world. So every time you go somewhere, if you come to an event like this and you leave without introducing yourself to one person that you've never met before, you just wasted an opportunity. That person might be the person he needs to start his company. That person might be your business partner. They might be your first employee. They might be your next boyfriend or girlfriend. But they might be someone really important in your life. And you miss them because you don't know them, so you didn't say hello. My whole life, my best friend used to say to me, why do you talk to everybody? Everybody I pass, I say, hi, how are you? And sometimes people just look at you and keep walking. But sometimes people stop and say, I'm fine, how are you? And then 5 minutes later, you have a new friend, you have a new business relationship, whatever it is. You have to reach out and get engaged. You have to build your network of people you know, but it doesn't happen if you never talk to anybody you don't already know. So I will encourage you to meet people every chance you get, everywhere you go. So when I was ready, now back to your question, to start a company, I needed people smarter than me to do it, but I already knew all these people. I started calling them, hey Ed, remember me, Jeff? He said, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. I said, I really need your help on something. I had a network. I was never alone from day one. So the first thing you do is talk some other people into helping you, right? You don't pay them if you don't have any money at first. So here's my point. People say, you're starting a company, you're not getting paid, right? Because you don't have any money. And you say, I can't hire anybody because I have to pay them. Well, wait, what about you? People say there aren't people out there that won't work for money. You're working for no money. Obviously, there are people like that. There are people like you. So when people tell me there's nobody out there that I can hire that doesn't want money, I say, are you getting money? And they say no. And I say, then apparently people like you exist. There are people out there that will help you on the team. I'll tell you guys the big hint for how you do that. The trick is, you don't go to other people and say, I need you to do this for me, right? Because that's all about you. One time, this guy came to me, and he wanted me to help him start a company, his company, to work for him. And when he was done, I said, let me see if I understand this. You want me to work every day, all day long, so that one day you can buy a boat? And he said, well, kind of. And I said, well, I was joking. I said, it's not very motivating to tell me I need to work all the time for no money so you can have a boat someday. What does that do for me? That's not the way I get people, right? I don't go to them and say, I want to tell you what you can do for me. And by the way, I can't even pay you for doing it, so have fun, okay? I don't do that. What you do is you go up and you say, tell me your dreams, tell me your goals, what do you want to do with your life? And I listen. And at the end, I say, you know what? I think I can help you do that. And the way I can help you do that is, come with me on this thing, on this company. Neither of us are going to get paid at the beginning, but the harder we work, the faster the money will come. And not only will we get paid, but then later we'll have Chris's thing, right? At the beginning, he didn't make a dime because NSYNC was an unheard of band. At the end, they've got paid a lot of money. All of our companies we started had no money at the beginning. The story that I usually tell is when I asked somebody that, this guy said, I want to buy my mother a house before I die. So what we did was, I didn't say, please come work for me for free, right, so that I can buy a boat. What I said was, I think I can help you buy a house for your mother, but we're going to have to work really hard. We're not going to get paid at the beginning, but if we work fast, we can start selling products, and then we can get paid. And if we do really well, we'll get paid a lot more than you ever got at your engineering job, and we can buy your mom a house. So you motivate a team by helping them achieve their dreams, not just yours. Who's got some questions back? Yes?
how to figure out the arrays of your passion? How to know that what you're truly passionate about?
It's a good question about figuring out where your passions are. What I always tell people to do is just forget passions, forget business, forget jobs. Just think about your week. Look back on the last week and say, what moments during the week was I really happy? Okay? What moments was I smiling and laughing and having a good time? What was I doing during those moments? And you start to go through and you start to look out to see what's common about those moments. And let me make this a little clearer by an example, because I was talking to a girl whose job is in accounting, right? And whenever I say, hey, how's it going? She's a friend of mine. Hey, Lauren, how's it going? It's fine. How's work? It's fine. Right? How's accounting? It's fine. And then I was like, okay, I'm trying to be a good friend here, but you don't really want to say anything. And she'd say, oh, I'm thinking about my friend Jennifer. And I said, what's up with Jennifer? And then she goes. She says, oh, well, Jennifer and Mary are having this big fight, and they're both yelling at each other and calling each other names. So I went over to Jennifer's house, and then I went to Mary's house, and then I made them sit down and talk together, and she's just totally on fire. And the next time I talked to her, she said, oh, my mother and my sister were fighting, so I went over to my sister's house, then I got my mother, then I made them sit face to face. And I said, it's pretty obvious. Her passion is resolving conflicts with people, right? When I ask her about accounting, she says it's fine. But when she tells me about her week, the stories she always gets excited about are when two people have a problem and she's the one who solves it. And then I said, when did you feel the best in the week? And she said, I got my mom and my sister to hug each other again. I got Mary and Jennifer to apologize to each other. So the example was, when we were done, I said to her, your favorite thing in the world to do is resolve problems for other people. And she said, I guess so, I never thought about that. And I said, well, the only times you ever seem excited are when you're telling me about that. She quit her accounting job and she opened a family counseling practice now. She spends all day bringing families in, making them sit together, and making them hug. She loves her life now. So she would have never told you that was her passion. But if you listen to somebody, watch somebody, or think about your own week, what are the things that you're doing that you're most excited about? Follow that example, and that will probably lead you to your passion. And you can figure out where you can go from there. Yes?
My name is Safar. Just the first question, we will talk about e-commerce a little bit, and what was your main mistake? Because you have established internet-based businesses, and did you have any mistake, or have you done any mistake?
Sure.
Can you share?
Sure. So the question was about, I went into my businesses were internet businesses and e-commerce. He asked about, did we make mistakes? And everybody makes mistakes. We made a lot. One of the first ones was I had this idea years ago that maybe I could make this software that instead of driving to the mall, you could buy a jacket on your computer. Seemed like a good idea at the time, didn't it? Except that what internet wasn't really here yet. So we built a company. We spent money. We made software that allowed you to do shopping on your computer without driving to the mall. The people that sold jackets and shoes, they liked it. They put their jackets and shoes on our system. But nobody bought anything. Nobody wanted to put their credit card in the computer yet. We were too early, and the business failed. And people that wanted to buy a sweater said, I'm going to go to the store and try it on and look at it and feel it. I'm just going to buy it on the internet. So it was a failure. We started an e-commerce company that failed because we were too early. We were actually, now I'll give you another example, which was years later. The biggest startup that I was part of was a company called Priceline.com. This was a case where we used technology. This is why I chose e-commerce. We used technology to solve a problem that you could not solve the day before the internet. There was no way to solve this without the technology. The problem was this: every hotel has empty rooms in it. Every airplane had empty seats in it. They would love to sell those seats, okay? But the people, everybody that could afford, if this makes sense, let's say the airplane seat was $400. Everybody that had $400 that wanted a seat already bought it. So there's no way. They can't sell right in front of you. So she paid $400. I can't say to you, the seat next to her is empty, just give me $50. You can sit next to her. She's going to say, I'm one of your best customers. That's not fair. So there was no way to solve the problem. So we had this idea that we could use the internet to anonymously allow her to make an offer, to name a price. So she could say, I don't have $400, so I can't go on the plane she's on. She already bought her ticket, but I don't have $400, so I can't go. However, I do have $100. If you have an empty seat, let me have it for $100. That's a good idea because everybody wins. The seat is empty. The airline gets $0 for it today, and she's not going to buy anything if it's $400. So if I give it to her for $100, she's happy and the airline's happy. So that's the product that we created, the e-commerce system, where we solved a real problem in the world, like I told you, in a simple problem. That was that company's Priceline.com. That company today was a small startup that we had a small group of people working on. Today, it's a company that does business in 180 countries, and it's worth $62 billion today. That was our most successful company, but you can fail a lot of times, and if you create a company that's worth billions of dollars, it covers all your mistakes. So that's what later I went in, I know some of you heard me talk about it. Later I went in, now I have a company where we make movies and we do music tours and concerts, and we could not afford to do that before the internet. That company did well and allowed us to get into other things that we wanted to try and other dreams to pursue, but we couldn't do those until we had a company that was successful. Somebody in the back? Other questions?
So, as an entrepreneur, was it difficult for you to find the balance between your career and family?
So the question is finding balance between your business and your personal life. And the answer is yes, it's really, really hard. You have a lot of times that people are mad at you. But here's the reality. There's nothing, I told you this before, nothing in life that's really worth having comes easy, right? You don't get great things by not trying. You don't win gold medals by running slowly and not training, right? So if you have a big dream and you want something big, guess what? You're going to work really hard. So it's a trade-off that you have to think about. There were times in my life, like we went, to Hollywood and we made movies that have been in studios. We're still doing that. But I was standing there and people would say, "You're so lucky. You get to go make these movies." Or my music company. I actually went on the tour with Justin Timberlake and the NSYNC guys. We did a tour with Britney Spears. We did stuff with Beyonce, with Elton John. I did concerts with Elton John. People would say later, "You're so lucky," that they'd see a picture of me with Elton John on stage. So you're so lucky you get to do all that stuff. That's not true. What I would tell them is, if you consider lucky all the nights you were asleep and I was still working, then I guess I was lucky. Okay? There was a penalty. And I will tell you this too, especially to young people. There were a lot of nights, Friday nights, that all my friends said, "Let's go, there's a great party." And I would get up, because it sounds like fun, it's a party, and I would sit back down. And I would say, "You know what, you guys go, because I'm going to finish this." What I'm telling you is not that you should spend your whole life working, right? You should go to parties and have fun and enjoy your life. But you can't have big dreams and go do big stuff if you didn't do big work. Somewhere you have to pay the price. And I read this quote recently. It said, being an entrepreneur is like living a few years of your life in a way that most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life in a way that most people can't. Does that make sense to everybody? My friends then said, "Oh, poor Jeff, you're missing the party." But those are the people that came later and said, "Can we get some tickets to the Britney Spears show because you're the one running it?" And I said, "Well, it turns out the parties I skipped are the reason that I was here today." So is there a price for that? Yes. Your friends get mad at you when you can't do things. You're working so hard that your family and other people say, "We never see you." And that's just the truth. Think about an Olympic gymnast who wins a gold medal in gymnastics. Do you think that she comes home from school, works out for 20 minutes, watches TV, eats something, lays on the couch, right, plays with her friends, goes to the mall? No. She's doing gymnastics 6 hours a day, or you don't win a gold medal. That's the truth of anything in life. So if you have some big gold medal you want to win, you're going to work for it. Now the answer to that, which I learned by doing it wrong, to be honest, is communication. What I did was, early in my life, you have a relationship, and once again, it's your girlfriend on the phone saying, you know, don't even call me anymore because you never call me anyway, okay? And you're like, yeah, there's another one that hates me. Somebody else that's mad. You do it wrong early on. But then what I learned was communication is the answer. If you sit everybody down in your life that matters and say, look, here's the deal. For the next 2 years, you're going to be mad at me because I'm going to have to work crazy hours for 2 years. But I want to tell you why I'm doing it and what we get out of it and how I'm going to make it up to you. If you communicate with everybody, explain what you're doing, why you're doing, and what the end result of it all is, then it really makes a difference. In recent years, I've been able to do a lot of charity work, right? We've been able to help a lot of people, whether it was giving money away or just spending our time with people. For years, I was the chairman of a national association for disabled children. And friends of mine that came out and saw us working with disabled children and saw us changing other people's lives said, okay, now I understand why you were gone all those nights, right? There was some reason you did this, and there's something good that came out of it. So there's no easy path, and you will sacrifice, and people will get upset with you, but communicate well and realize that you're making a sacrifice for a reason. If you're not, stop doing it, right? The days that I can go help disabled children, one day we found out, it was the kid I was talking about before, that a child said to me, do you know what's worse than being disabled? And I said, what? And he said, being disabled and poor. And I said, well, it's time to go. Where's your wheelchair? And he said, I don't have a wheelchair. And you know what? You think, don't all disabled people, if you can't walk, you're in a wheelchair. Well, guess what? The world doesn't magically give you a wheelchair. Somebody has to go buy it. And his parents didn't have any money, and he had no wheelchair. And I remember thinking, I thought all poor kids, all disabled kids had wheelchairs. And he said, no, somebody has to buy it. So me and a friend of mine went and bought 200 wheelchairs. And we went all over the city finding people that were disabled and poor and giving them new wheelchairs. Some people we gave 2. And I could not have done that if I'd gone to every party along the way. So you get something out of your hard work. Thank you. But you got to earn it. Other questions? Yeah, is that a hand? Yeah.
About time management. How many hours per day you work and how many hours you rest?
You know, work, I don't ever rest. I try, but I just can't sleep. There's always something I could be doing, and sleeping seems to get in the way. And I got to do better at that. But hours that you work is not, I don't have a typical day, and entrepreneurs typically don't. It's a combination of 2 things. Whatever needs to be done. When we have a deadline, we have to deliver something, we'll work around the clock to make sure we get it done because it builds our reputation. That if we tell you it's coming on Monday, it's coming on Monday. And then when there's days that we don't have anything to do, we don't. So the thing that I liked, I told you entrepreneurship for me was freedom. When I was at my engineering job, if I had an assignment to do and I finished it and it was 2 o'clock, if I got up to go home, what do you think my boss would say? Where are you going? I'm going home. You can't go home, you work here. Well, I'm finished. I'll come back tomorrow. You can't just leave. We work from 8 in the morning till 5 at night. And I said, I know, but I'm done. You can imagine this conversation would never happen. Entrepreneurs, I don't even ask my employees people that work for me today, I don't even ask them where they are. I say, here's the assignment, let me know when it's done. I don't care if they slept 2 days and then worked 3 days without sleeping. I don't care if they were gone Monday but came in on Sunday. The only thing that matters are results. What's nice about entrepreneurship is you get judged on what you do, not all the unmeaningless stuff around it. I don't care what time. If one of my guys wants to work from midnight till 6 a.m. and then sleep all day, that's fine because he finished the work. When there's a customer and you have to go to a meeting, you go to a meeting. But the answer to your question is, there is no regular schedule. When we have to do something, get out of the way because we will get it done. But when we don't have something to do, I don't care if my whole team is skiing somewhere. They know what has to be done. They will get it done from wherever they are. So entrepreneurship is nice because you just focus on results. So that's why I say I don't have typical hours. It depends entirely on what I'm doing. Yes?
If you don't have enough time to sleep, what about your health?
That's why I said it's not good to not sleep. It's definitely bad for your health.
How old are you?
I'm really old. I'm even older than this. Or I should say the other thing. I'm 24, but I look like this because I work so hard. But I'm old. It's not good for your health. We don't want people to work all the time. We just want you to work when you have to. When it's time to get something done, entrepreneurs get it done. When you don't have work to do, go home and go skiing. That's the way I treat all my people. Just get things done. Not sleeping is a bad idea. It's a bad habit, and I got to break it.
You get everything you wanted, and you did everything you wanted. And what is your now dream? Big dream?
Well,
you have another big dream now.
Well, this is it. I mean, I had a lot of big dreams. You know, I always wanted to start a company. I never wanted to make millions of dollars. I never cared about money. But I did want to have a successful company. And if money is the measure in business of success, then I should get that too, because I did the same thing. So, like I told you guys, my first company, I sold it when I was 20-something, and I already had the millions of dollars. And I thought, okay, wow, now what? Because I thought it was going to take my whole life to get there. And it turned out that that wasn't nearly as exciting as I thought. I bought the things, for those of you, there's the car that I talked about earlier. You know, I went and bought the Ferrari. And I drove right around and I said, okay, now I'm done with that. That wasn't nearly as fun as I thought. I'm not saying it wasn't fun to do. I'm just saying those aren't things that drive your life. They don't make you happy. Once you do those things. And what you find out was you didn't really want to do all these things and buy these things. You just want to know you could. Right? You want to work hard enough to know that whatever you want to do, you could actually do it. And then it turns out you don't really want to do it so much anymore. People want to do or have stuff that they don't have because they don't have it. And then you get it and you say, well, that wasn't such a big deal. So you constantly, at each phase of your life, you're trying to figure out what's next, what your dreams are. The stuff, I had a dream once that I always wanted to make a movie. That was actually a dream of mine. And once I had some success in business, I went out, this was after Priceline, I went out to Hollywood and made a movie. And it was fun. And it was something I always dreamed of. And we were very lucky. We made a scary movie we made this movie for like $1.4 million, and it's been seen in 46 countries now. It's still on TV in the United States, and the movie made like $100 million. But we weren't even doing it to make money. We were doing it because I thought it'd be really cool someday to go out to Hollywood and make a movie. So I had a list of, that was one point in my life. At each point in your life, your dreams change. There'll be a time in your life where you really are, you need a car, and you're dreaming about a car because yours doesn't work or you don't have one. And so it's okay to focus on making money to make a car. Then there's a part where you're dreaming about getting married and having a family, and you should focus on that. Then there's a part where your family's doing fine, and you're dreaming about traveling to 40 countries, and you go do that. The point is, you should always have some dreams and goals that are short-term to go with your long-term ones. If the only dream you have is something that's going to take you your whole life to achieve, it's really hard to get up every morning when the goal is way far off. So what I'm telling you is every couple of years, every 2 to 3 years, I say, what do I want for the next 2 or 3 years? What is my current dream? What am I excited about? What are my passions? So 2 years ago, the start of 2012, I said, the thing I most love doing is helping other people achieve their dreams now. That's what I get excited about. I've done the stuff that I want to do. And what I really want to do next, and I thought about it, what makes me happy? What do I get excited about? I will tell you, it's trips like this. It's meeting you guys. It's hearing other people's dreams and then helping them. And somebody comes back and says, I achieved my dream and your advice helped me. That's really cool for me. So I have taken the last 2 years and all I've been doing is flying all over the world, meeting with people like you guys. I said I'm going to spend the next couple of years trying to help other people achieve their dreams because I was blessed enough to do that, already do that for myself. So right now, if you ask me in 2 more years, I don't know what the answer will be. Which, by the way, when people say, what are you doing with your life? I used to say, well, I can tell you what I'm doing the next 2 years and then call me again. And people would say, no, you have to have a plan for your life. And I'd say, that is my plan for my life. To do things every couple of years, then do something else. And people would always say, no, you need one plan for your whole life. And I have long-term goals, things that I want to do that are long-term, but I do my goals in 2 or 3 years at a time. Ask yourself, it's 2014. At the end of 2014, what do you need to get done this year? And you should focus on that. And by the way, not only should you make goals that you can reach, so at the end of the year, but celebrate them. Reward yourself. Say, that's what I said, if I ever achieve these things, I'm going to go buy that stupid car in the poster. I don't even want the car. I just want to prove that I could buy it, and then I'm done. It wasn't for anybody else. It was just to prove to myself that if you work really hard, you can achieve things. So you should make dreams every year. You should say, for this year, this is what I want to accomplish, and if I do, I'm going to celebrate. And when you do, it makes the work worth it, right? You feel good even the nights you didn't sleep because you achieved something. And the next time, like I said, I don't do them every year, I do them every 2 or 3 years. You can make another goal. So keep your goals where you can reach them and reward yourself. I remember way back when, the first time I saw a big flat screen TV. I wanted it, right? And what I did was I said, okay, I want this TV now, but I'm going to write down some goals, and I'm going to put the TV for December. And if I achieve all the things on this list, then in December, the day I finish achieving them, I'm going to go straight over there and buy that TV. It's okay to reward yourself, and it doesn't have to be money or material things. It might be just taking a trip, visiting somebody, whatever. But give yourself a reason to keep working and goals that you can see and feel when you achieve them. I don't know where we are time-wise. Are we okay? Other questions? Yes?
What about faith? I mean, when you were on the way to your goal, did you ever lose hope or none?
So the question was faith and hope. Because the answer is, without a doubt, there are days where nothing goes right. There are days where you can hear, again, all the people that were laughing at you. And there are days that you start to think, maybe everyone else is right, maybe I am crazy. There is no way around days like that, right? But I told you one of the techniques I would do, right? I would close my eyes and I would imagine that fire burning again. That fire is burning in here. And I would think back to all the people that laughed at me, made fun of me, or just said no. No, you're not good enough. No, you can't do that. No, you can't climb that mountain. And I would use those things as inspiration, but with your eyes open, right? When you have a day where nothing is working, you need to be really honest and say, why isn't it working? Am I doing something wrong, or did I just try to climb a mountain that was covered in ice and you can't climb this mountain? You have to be open. So I would stop and look in the mirror and say, am I crazy? Is everybody right? Am I wasting my time? Is this not something I can achieve? And I would at least take an honest look. Because the thing, you know what's one of the worst things a person can have? Ego, right? Pride. Those things are horrible. Because here's what happens, especially to entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs go tell all their family. And they'll tell all their friends, I'm starting this new company, I'm going to be rich and famous, it's going to be the greatest thing ever. And you tell everybody. How's it, then they see you again, how's it going? How's your great dream of riches and fame, of the best company ever going? And you say it's going great. And then one day you wake up and it's not going great. Okay? And you look in the mirror, like I said, and you ask all the questions. Did I just pick a mountain that can't be climbed? Was I just wrong? Okay, sometimes you're just wrong. I've had that time where I thought I had a good idea, and it was wrong. It was a bad idea. So you look at that, and here's what people do. Their pride. They say, well, if I got to go tell all my friends that I was wrong, what are they going to say? Oh, how's your great company going? You say it was wrong, it failed. And they're all going to laugh at you again. So you know what people do? They don't want to say they were wrong. So they don't stop. They keep doing it because they're afraid to go tell people. That's pride, right? And pride will waste a lot of your Saturdays that you don't have because you weren't strong enough to say, I was wrong. And you weren't strong enough to have people laugh at you and say, I told you were wrong. I told you that was a stupid idea. That will happen. So that ego thing prevents people from doing that. I had times where I was wrong and people said, what happened to your great idea? And I said, oh, it was wrong. Right? It's not that big and dramatic. And some people do laugh. Right? And some people do make fun of you and you feel bad about it. But the truth is, I don't really. I get over it in 5 minutes. Right? You can't live your life looking backwards. You live your life looking forward. So it takes me 5 minutes to get over stuff. Go ahead, you can all laugh at me, but you got 5 minutes because then I'm going to do something else. Right? That's a decision that you make. You can't bring your pride, you don't bring your ego to work. When you're wrong, move on. And on those days that are really low, when you ask, the days that it feels like you have no faith, what am I doing and why am I doing this? Then you need to think about not what, but why. You need to think about, if I had known, let's say I had known this, if I had known that somewhere out there were 200 kids that didn't have a wheelchair, that little boy, I said, can I ask you something? He said, what? And I said, how do you go to the bathroom? He said, my father picks me up and carries me to the toilet. Then he picks me up and carries me to the chair. Then later, when it's time to eat, he picks me up and carries me to the table. Then later, he has to carry me to my bed. All because he didn't have a wheelchair. So you know what I think of in those really low moments when your faith is gone? I think somewhere out there, there's some kid who wishes his father didn't have to carry him everywhere. If I don't get back to work, no one's going to help that kid. Give yourself something that drives you, that's bigger than you, something more important to you. Think about what you're going to do with your life and who's going to benefit from it. And it's really easy to have faith in the moments when you don't. Because if it's just about you, if all you can think is, geez, I'm not going to be able to, buy that flat screen TV if that's all you care about, it's hard to draw faith from that. But if you have goals for your life that are bigger than you, you can use those to pick yourself up. Because I would always think about the people that someday I hope I can help. And if I quit now, it's one thing to quit for me, but I'm quitting on all of them and I can't do that. And I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you.
You said your workers are smarter than you. And if they do everything, what are you doing in your company?
So no, that's a really good question. My goal was to hire people that were smarter than me and people that know how to run the company. It's a myth. People think if you're the leader, if you're the managing director or the CEO, that means you have to run the company. What I learned later was the real job of a leader is to build a team of people so talented that they don't even need you anymore, right? Because if you have to do everything yourself, then your company is inefficient. If they have to call me every time they have a question, then we can't grow. We're inefficient. Because if I'm gone one day on a business trip, the company can't operate. So I started thinking, my goal is to hire people so smart that they don't even ask me questions because they're smarter than me and I can't help them anyway. So one day, I was walking down the hall in my office and I didn't have anything to do. And I went down the hall and I asked some of my people, I asked my engineering people, hey, can I help you guys with something? And they said, kind of, no, you're not that good of an engineer anyway. Keep walking, right? And I went to the operations department and I said, I have nothing to do. Can I help with you guys with something? And they said, we don't really have any problems. Everything's going great. We're busy, so just keep walking. Right, I went to the finance department. My finance guy said, really? If I showed you this, you wouldn't even understand it. And I said, okay. And I went back to my office with nothing to do. And I was sad. And my employees came in. And they said, why are you sad? And I said, because there's nothing for me to do. And they said, you should be celebrating. And I said, why? And they said, you built a company that people are so good that we have no problems and no one has any questions. We don't need you because you hired us. You picked the right people. You can go start another company if you want, or you can go out. What I did instead was start exploring the future. They said, we can run this, we don't need you. And I said, great, I'm going to head to Europe and see if we can start opening a market in Europe. It freed me up to do the stuff that I like to do because they didn't need me at home anymore. So your goal is to be on a team that doesn't need you, because that means you can go do something else that no one else was working on.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, well, you just did.
Motivation. What is your motivation?
What? What I was saying is, my motivation is different at different times in my life. There were times when I was launching a company that I was very motivated by the success of that company. It's like I said, you'll have different motivations at different times in your life. So it depends on when you're asking me. Right now, I think I already answered that. Right now, my motivation is, well, I wrote down, I'll tell you guys something that I did. When I was at my best friend's funeral, Mike, that I told you about, and I told you guys that I sat thinking, what do I want my life to be? I wrote down then, you should try it sometime, write down what you want to be on your grave. When you die, what's the one sentence you want them to write on your grave, right? And I wrote that down. And I wrote down, people are walking by and they see it. And here's what I want people to say one day. He helped, well, I want to be judged. I don't want to be judged by how much money I made. I want to be judged by how many other people's lives I made better. So what I would want at my funeral is people to walk by and say, you know what, Jeff inspired me, Jeff helped me, Jeff had a positive impact on me. So the only way I could ever achieve that result is if I spend a lot of time flying across the planet to frozen places like Kazakhstan in the middle of winter and trying to do something positive for somebody. So that's my motivation. I really hope when I'm done that I've had a positive impact on somebody besides myself. So I'm motivated now to go out and try to work with people and try to help and try to see if I can share something. That the best emails or messages I get ever in my life are not business deals, are when somebody sends me a message that says, you had a positive impact on me in my life. That's the coolest thing. I just stare at those for a long time because I worked really hard to get to that point. That's what motivates me.
So it seems like you started as a pioneer in many things, like in price line, other things. So maybe you didn't have that many competitors. How did you keep yourself motivated without competitors? Or did you have some people who you knew were working on this?
But wait, isn't that the goal? Wouldn't you rather try to find a space where you're the only one instead of a space filled with competitors?
Don't you think competition makes you like thrive even more? Like those gymnasts that you told me about?
Yes, but we never needed it. We didn't need someone else to make us work harder. So yes, I agree with you. Competition drives you and pushes you, and they show up later anyway. They're always there. But we didn't need the competition. We wanted to be the best anyway, even if nobody else was around. So we stayed motivated. You go ahead.
You look like extraordinary boss and a person as well, because you talk about this charity thing that you like to help people, and this is your goal. But what if making great money is a great seduction for just quitting, pursuing your dream, and helping other people, and just making money and living with the help of them a glorious life?
Okay. No, that's an absolutely great question. The question is that, if what you want to do is help people, you could quit your business, quit your dream, and just help people. But here's the thing. The very first time, I won't tell you the whole story. The very first time I helped somebody was something I was watching on TV. It was a shelter for abused women, women that were victims of domestic violence. All the women were getting kicked out because the shelter ran out of money. And I was watching them on TV all crying and thinking somebody needs to help them. And that very same night I said, wait a minute, I could be somebody. I could help them. And I realized that day, this was a time in my life that I was feeling bad about making money because all my friends were mad at me and people were treating me differently. And I remember thinking, there was a song, I don't know if you know it or not, but there was an American song called Mo Money, Mo Problems. And I was sitting there thinking, yep, that song is true. I have all these problems now that I never had. My life is complicated and I wasn't enjoying it anymore, just because of money. And then I saw that story on the news about the women from the abuse shelter. And I got up and went to the bank and went and took some of that money I worked really hard for and went and paid for the shelter. And it paid for all the bills for all those women. When I saw them on TV that night crying because they were happy, I realized there is a relationship between how hard I work in my business and how much impact I can make on other people's lives. So I had the opposite effect of what you said. What I wanted to do was I said to all my employees, let's hurry back to work and make some more money so we can go help some other women somewhere else. We couldn't wait to go back to work, be successful, and make money because it was so meaningful for us to go do something. So we did both. At my companies, I tell my employees every quarter, 4 times a year, I tell them at the end of this quarter, we're going to look at how much money we made in the business, we're going to take a pile of it, and you guys are going to go out in the community and help somebody. My employees get so excited about these community projects. They get all excited, they say, what are we going to do for the summer? What are we going to do next quarter? And somebody will say, there's an orphanage, there's a women's shelter, there's whatever it is. There's always somebody that we can help. But unfortunately, in the real world, it takes money to solve some problems. So instead of going away from work, I get motivated to go start another company, make more money, and help more people. The more harder we work, the more money we make, the more people's problems we can solve. And people that work for me have to understand that to work for me. But they like it because they pick the projects. I say, go around in our community and see who needs our help, and then let's work really hard so that we can help them. Wait, somebody straight back. Did you, well, go ahead.
It is always hard to believe in absolutely unknown people when you hire people, employees. And how do you, what do you feel when you hire them?
Okay, so the question is, you're hiring unknown people, so how do you know it's going to work? And how do you select people? And I will tell you and give you my answer. The answer is not by their CV. It's not their resume. It's not their skills. We hire people by their qualities, by their integrity, by their values. So I always tell people that I hire people with energy and attitude. People that are just raw intelligence. So I had 2 interviewees for a job. And I had one guy said, I've been doing this job for 17 years. Here's my 4-page CV. And this girl came in and she said, I don't really know how to do that, but give me 2 weeks. And everybody started laughing. And then they said, wait, what, you hired the girl? You know what happened? About 3 months later, the job changed. The guy that's only ever done one thing his whole life will never be able to adapt. This girl, I said, hey, we're making a big shift. She said, that's fine, give me 2 weeks. So it's a joke in our company. Everything that changes, the same girl says, that's fine, just give me 2 weeks. And she always figures it out. She has a good attitude. She loves learning. She has intellectual curiosity. I trust her. So we hire people on their value system, on their personality, on their culture. People come up to me. I'll tell you one other one that really meant a lot to me. There's this, my office, I had an office in Houston. And it was a really hot, sweaty day there, and I was visiting my office there. And there was this young Vietnamese man who came in. When he came in, he was in a suit, but he was covered in sweat because he had no car and he was walking. And he was already walking like this just to feed me. And he came into the office and he basically said, I know you don't want to hire me. Right? That's how he started trying to get a job. Right? I know you don't want to hire me. And really bad English. And I said, well, that sales pitch will really work. And he said, well, no one's going to hire me. And I said, well, you can't, not with that attitude. And he said, sir, I've been walking all over the city trying to find a job. He said, I don't have any real skills yet. And I just got out of Vietnam and I don't speak English. And I said, why did you leave? And he said, I was trying to build a better life for my family, right? I took my wife and kids, got out of there, and he said, I'm trying to learn English on my own, and I was having a hard time understanding him. He said, I want to be a programmer and learn computer skills, but I don't have any money, I can't go to school. And I said, so what are you doing this? And he said, because I can't give up for the sake of my wife and kids. And I said, all right, well, take a shower and you can start Monday. And he said, start what? And I said, working here. And he said, doing what? And I said, I'm willing to guess you'll figure something out. Because you know why? He wanted a job so bad. He wanted to be a productive member of society so bad that he was willing to do anything. And you know what would happen? When there was hard work that nobody would want him to do, his name was Tree. Tree would say, I'll do it. Because his attitude about work was different. And I would say, guys, Tree, why does Tree always have to do this? And Tree would say, I don't mind. And people would start feeling bad. They'd say, man, that guy never says no to anything that needs to be done, no matter how hard it is. And he started having impacting on other people's attitude. And he would stay up at night and take programming classes. And I gave him a chance because I believe that somebody with that much motivation and attitude is probably going to be a really good employee. I did not care on day one that his skills were not as good as they needed to be. Now that's a risk I took because I own the business. But the point is, we hire people more about who they are and less about their resume. I meet people on these trips that I'll say, you know, that girl is amazing. I want her on our team somehow. Before I really know what their skills are, I know what they're like as a person. So the culture, the values, those are the things we lead with, and the skills come second. In fact, I tell people, you can never get fired for making a mistake in my company. If you do something wrong, you'll never get fired, but you'll get fired instantly for a violation of integrity. If you treat somebody poorly, if you're disrespectful, if you lie, if you do something that violates our value system, you're gone. If you make a mistake at work, hey, you're human, you made a mistake, you can get over that. So we really make sure that our values are strong.
It's true.
Somebody back there, go ahead. It is true.
Jeff, thank you so much for sharing all the stories. And yesterday I heard you that you shared technique, 15-minute technique, that every morning you dedicate 15 minutes to know something that is out of your box. And my question is there any other techniques that you apply to boost your creativity? Because in order to run the business, you need to have ideas. So what are your approaches? Maybe you can bring up another person's story that also seemed to you good.
You know, yeah, I mean, I told you, I told one story about this older gentleman that I was meeting with about techniques for increasing your creativity and coming up with ideas. I told this story yesterday as well about this older gentleman that came up with a really creative new concept in stores, in retail, in the United States. And it followed different rules than everybody else. And I asked him how he came up with his creative ideas. And he told me that he used to go sit in restaurants and buy dessert, buy pie for people, and just listen to them talk. And it was a great idea because those people were his customers. He went to wherever he didn't live in that part of town. He drove across the city, went to the restaurants where these people that he wanted to sell things to ate, and he sat in the restaurant with them for hours and just bought them pie and listened to them. And they came up with all the creative ideas, not him. And he wrote them all down and went back. And what was interesting about the story was that the guy I was with, his name is Sam Walton, and his store that he created is called Walmart. It was pretty darn successful. And he did it by putting himself out of the office. That made a big change in my business life. I would pick a day every once in a while where they'd say, "Where are you going?" And I'd say, "I'm just going to spend the whole day in the grocery store." And they said, "Why?" And I said, "Because all the people, the customers are there, and I just want to listen to them all day. What do they talk about? What do they think about? What do they care about?" The creative ideas came from being out of my office and being around other people and listening to them. But I didn't make up that idea. I got it because that's what Sam Walton said. The other thing that you referred to is I do this thing that I call info sponging. And the word doesn't really mean anything. I just had to put something on the slide. What I do is every morning or every day, I find a few minutes a day to go read something that's outside of my area of interest. Go force yourself to learn one new thing every day, even if it's 5 minutes. So one day, I'll just give you a quick example. One day I went and I read a story. Whatever catches your attention, don't think too hard. I said, okay, this is my info sponging time. I have to learn one new thing that I don't know why I'm learning. So I went online and there was a story about how to sell fruit. And I was like, I wonder what that's about. So I clicked on it. And I just let my mind wander. And I read a story about how to sell fruit. And the story was about perishable commodities. The story said that if I'm selling this chair, it can be in my store for 2 years. But if I'm selling a banana, I only have 5 days. So I have to sell it differently before it spoils. So guess what? Later we launched this company, right? That when we launched Priceline, Priceline uses an infrastructure for distributing, for liquidating perishable commodities. The same stuff, the same ideas that were used to get this banana out the door before it spoils were ideas that we used when we were launching the Priceline companies. It wound up being a very big success. So that's another technique. Every day or once a week, go read something. Sometimes when I'm on the road, I'll go buy magazines to get on the airplane. Then I'll look at the magazine and I'll be like, I don't even know why I'm reading this. It's not in my industry. I don't know anything about it. But it's the more little bits of information you collect, the more things you expose yourself. You can think of those as puzzle pieces. So one puzzle piece doesn't show you what the picture is. 2 puzzle pieces doesn't show you what the picture is. 10 doesn't. But one day you have so many puzzle pieces, so many stories about fruit stands and stories about this, that you start moving them around and you can make something new out of them. So our companies, our creative ideas came because we exposed ourselves to all kinds of things that we didn't know why we needed to learn. Are we doing okay?
Wrapping up soon.
Okay.
So do I understand correctly, you are a success coach, right? So do you have an agency we can find on the internet and your website?
Yeah, the company, I would say yes and no. Because, success coaches, that's really what their business is and what they do, right? They do that professionally, they get paid. I do this because it's what I want to do. So this isn't a job, it's volunteer work. So it's not run like a coaching company per se. But yeah, so I would say mentor is a better word. The company is ColorJar, ColorJar.com. That's our website. And that's where you can find me.
What is the history of the name?
The name doesn't mean anything. It means about as much as Google or Yahoo do. Names don't mean anything anymore. One of my designers had created this logo and had this URL already for ColorJar. And when we were starting this mentoring company, he said, well, I already have a website. I already have a logo. It's all registered. And since no one cares what the names are anyway.
Which success coach or I don't know, author inspired you?
So the question is, authors, which other authors are inspiring to me and that I read? I read kind of a mix, but I don't tend to read as many business books. When I finally have a few minutes and I'm not working, I usually read for entertainment. So I read fiction much more than I read business books. There are definitely some good authors out there, but I'm not the person to ask because I don't read a lot of the business books.
You must read your profession book, yes? Or many other books?
No, I don't read as much. Like I said, I read more fiction now. So I tend to read in short bursts. I read a lot more. I read a lot, but I don't go buy a lot of business books. And I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. I'm just being honest. I don't.
Can I ask you a question? Many people start business with their friends, and when a company becomes successful, they have problems. You know, like we watch a movie about social network like this.
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg have problems with it. Maybe they see a future of the company in the another way. And do you have these problems? And how? And if you have, or how you solve these problems?
So, I'll be really honest. I have had trouble more than once with bringing friends into business. There are more times that I wish I had not done that than times that it worked out. Now, everybody will give you a different answer. I can only be honest about mine. But I have had trouble when I've had friends in business. I had one friend, a really good friend of mine, who just stopped doing his job. And it was a problem. And as a business, I have other people working hard. So I can't allow one person to stop working. So I told him, you gotta do more work or you can't keep working here. And he laughed because I'm his friend, I'm not gonna fire him. And I told him a second time and he didn't do it. So he was shocked when I called him in and said, I have to replace you because you're not doing any work and everybody else is. And here's what made it worse. He didn't call me that night, his wife did. His wife called and screamed and yelled at me and called me every name and said, I'm the worst friend ever. What kind of friend would fire his own friend? You're a jerk and I hate you. And I was like, wow. Pardon?
So you don't advise to...
You know, all I can say, I won't advise either way, but what I can tell you is, for me, and only one data point, it didn't work very well more than one time. It was hard with good friends. And believe me, by the way, if I had to choose between a relationship and a business, I'll keep my friends and find something else to do. Friends are a lot harder to find than starting another company. So I told my friends, let's figure out what we need to do to protect our relationship and we'll do something different in business. But it didn't work for me.
Do you read literature?
Yes.
You said about you have to find mentor. Who was your mentor? Did you have any mentor?
Yes, so the question was about finding a mentor. I have, throughout my life, I've had different ones. I've always tried to find mentors, but I learned a really valuable lesson about mentors, right? And the lesson is this, because the people that I thought were mentors around me were giving me advice that it wasn't making sense to me and I didn't agree. And I wasn't sure. They seemed so smart, but this feels wrong to me. So I found something out. It's because they were smart people and good at something, but not the something I wanted to be. The example I gave that I always usually use is, if everybody you know plays golf, but you want to play baseball, then should you keep asking those guys how do I look as a basketball? How's my baseball game going? How's a golfer going to tell you how to play baseball? So all the people around me that were telling me advice and mentoring me, I kept thinking, I know you're really smart, but that doesn't seem right to me. And then one day I realized, because they're all trying to teach me how to play golf and I want to play baseball. So you know what I need in my life? I need to find a baseball player to be a mentor, and nobody in my family, none of my friends were one. What that means is, find somebody in the world whose life you want yours to look like and get them to mentor you. Because remember I told you about that guy Charles, the really high-ranking guy at the company. Everybody in that company went to him as a mentor because they all wanted to be him when they grew up. And I looked at his job and his life and I said, but that's not what I want. I want to do that over there. So why am I asking this guy for advice? Why am I swinging a baseball bat and asking golfers, so how does it look? And they say, no, you swing like this. And I say, no, that's golf. I want to play baseball. All they know is golf, so all they're going to tell you is golf. Find somebody whose life you want yours to look like and try to get them to be your mentor.
Did you find any?
I did, yes. And it was very, very helpful to me.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have a mantra or some kind of ritual in the morning when you wake up?
Yeah, that was the part that I was telling you that I do the info sponging. The question was, do you have some kind of sort of day-to-day ritual? Mine is, I start every day, no emails, no text, no phone, nothing. I take a few minutes before my mind is cluttered to go do that info sponging I told you about, to just go learn something that I have no idea why I'm learning, right? I just read a story. You know what's one of the favorite things I do? The homepage of Yahoo, every morning I go to it to see what are the top 10 trending searches on the internet right now. On any given day, you can't learn anything necessarily, but if you do that every day, you know what happens? You start to get a feeling for what is the world thinking about? What are they worrying about? What are they researching? So one day, a customer said to me, how do you always know what we're thinking before we know? And the answer was Yahoo. Because I look at the Yahoo, the trends all the time, and I get a sense of what people in the world are thinking about. That's one of the rituals. But the info sponging. Find a story to read before I start my day about something that just catches my attention every day. And over time, those start to form, the dots connect. You say, oh, wait a minute, that day I read about this, if you combine that with this, and that other thing I was reading about, you could start something new tomorrow. I think we can do a couple more, and then we got to call it.
Did you try to return the interest in something which you had lost years before because of some circumstances?
Okay, I didn't hear you. Can someone closer repeat that? I didn't quite hear.
Did you try to return the interest in something which you lost years, which you had lost years before because of some circumstances?
Well, like what? Give me an example. Because it sounds like you're thinking of something specific. That is not a random question.
For example, years ago I had a dream, and for realizing it, I had to move the capital of Kazakhstan.
Yes.
But here I had some barriers, and now I have no plan.
So yes,
but I lost the interest.
This is why I thought you were asking that. I was pretty sure that was your story. And the answer is yes. Sometimes in your life, like I said before, every 2 or 3 year chunk of your life has different goals. So there's times in your life, let's say you're chasing your dream and there's something that you're pursuing. And then all of a sudden, let's say you got pregnant and you're going to have a child. For a couple of years, you need to deal with that child and you can't deal with whatever that dream was maybe. But there's a lot of times, so when life happens, deal with it. If there's something that stops you, do what you have to do. But that doesn't mean, I don't know what your dream was, so it might. But in many cases, yes, you can come back later and do it, right? So there are times where I had to tell somebody that he had a charity idea, but he was having really big money problems, and all he wanted to do was this charity. And I had to sit him down and say, look, maybe this is just not the right moment in your life. Maybe for the next 2 years, you should work a lot of hours till you get out of financial trouble, and then you can go back to this idea. So, life happens around you, and you have to weave it into the plan.
How do you manage stress?
How do I manage what?
Stress.
How do I manage stress? I fly to places like Kazakhstan. I just came back from India. That was a 16-hour flight. Then I flew here. Then I'm going to go home. Then I'm going to come back to Armenia. So the answer is I obviously have no idea how to handle stress. You have to have, but I think that's a fair question, handling stress. You have got to, when you burn out, you're no good to anybody. When you're overworked and overstressed, you won't do anything well. So you've got to find things. My answer to that, two of the things I'm really passionate about, sports. I love playing sports when I can, but I love going to sports. So that's a big break for me. And, I love movies, right? One of my mental escapes is just go to a movie and be entertained and not think about anything. Books are, fiction books are a good escape. I'm a big music fan. So back in the day, we used to do the tours and the concerts. But even now, I love to go to music. You have to make time. If all you do is work, you will not be good at it because you'll just get burned out. Do we have time for any more? Okay, guys, I think we got to stop now. We won't rush out of the room. We'll stay here. So I saw you had 2 hands up. You can stop by here. Thank you guys very much for spending time on it.